the repossession, reallocation of land to the means of production. That reallocation on its own saw once Comrade Robert Mugabe, who was the favorite of the world, who had more than 37, 38, if not 40 degrees from the top universities around the world, sung and praised by everybody around the world. The day he touched the land issue, Zimbabwe was relegated into the junk state that we are now facing. I would like to discuss with you this afternoon something that I want to term as the Zimbabwean model of African liberation. Zimbabwean model of the African liberation. Fast forward, Zimbabwe fights the Chimurenga War and Zimbabwe is liberated. It's liberated politically, but it's not liberated economically, which meant that another Chimurenga battle had to start now that Zimbabwe needed to have access to full freedom, including its own economic freedom. Economic structural adjustment programs and other United Nations and IMF programs, World Bank programs, did not deliver the freedom that we were looking for. Instead, they pressed us back into the hole. The liberation heroes of Zimbabwe then said, we have been patient with the European and colonial systems. Hence, we need now to have full ownership over our land so that we can own the means of production. A battle that has seen Zimbabwe sinking into the situation that it is right now, where the international community wants access to resources, but Mugabe, Honorable Mugabe, pulled an ace card, which they knew was there, but they were not expecting it. That was the repossession, reallocation of land to the means of production. That reallocation on its own saw once Comrade Robert Mugabe, who was the favorite of the world, who had more than 37, 38, if not 40 degrees from the top universities around the world, sung and praised by everybody around the world. The day he touched the land issue, Zimbabwe was relegated into the junk state that we are now facing. Now, when you listen to the politics around the South, you keep on hearing people saying, don't do that and that, you will become another Zimbabwe. Don't do that and that, you will become another Zimbabwe. But the honest truth is, until we follow the Zimbabwean model, we are going nowhere. I'll qualify that. We brought, as Zimbabwe, we brought colonization here through attracting the colonizers with our resources and to liberate ourselves. Zimbabwe right now in Africa remains one of the only African countries which fully owns its land. And Zimbabwe must be embarrassed by the West to all the world so that no other African country can even try to do what Zimbabwe has done. Don't touch land. Don't touch ownership of resources. Don't talk about sovereignty and total ownership over things. Just work in the banks and work in the schools. Just become an employee. But don't talk ownership. Don't destabilize the system. And the model that Zimbabwe has taken, as I entitled my conversation, which I call the Zimbabwean model, it is not yet perfected, but it is worth studying. Zambia, South Africa, Malawi, Kenya, Tanzania, and all other countries that are seeking for full liberation, they need to understand the jugular, that vein that leads to colonialism, ownership of land. Once you touch that vein, no matter how favorite you are to the international community, you will be relegated to the junk state. Why? because the economic system still remains colonial. Hear me well. It is important, therefore, for Africans to understand and know, until we own means of production, until we own land, we can't own agriculture. Land, we can't own mining. Land, we can't own roads. Land, we can't own housing. Land, we can't own water. Land, we can't own culture. And by taking land away from the colonial system, you are fully liberating yourself from the land laws. This is contrasted to the marine laws, the land laws that govern the land. And those land laws are locked up in the Roman Dutch institutions. And the Roman Dutch institutions are not African institutions, rather they are colonial institutions, which are then surrogate children, manifest themselves in constitutions, in banking laws, in insurance laws, in health laws, in mining laws, in transportation laws, in immigration laws, the rest of the laws, in entertainment laws, satellite laws, nuclear wars, laws, so that the African country, you can't do anything because you are being governed by this little piece of paper they call a constitution which is a prostitute of the Roman Dutch law. Our liberation as the African children is not liberation to share toilets with whites. We can build our own toilets. Freedom is not freedom of sharing toilets. We can build our own toilets. Freedom is us as Africans having full access to our resources, full access to the land of our fathers, full access to own the means of production. And until we reach that moment of not lambasting, insulting, underplaying the Zimbabwean model, all other forms of freedom remain as window dressing. Window dressing. People will be running around here, we are free, we are free. Free from what? Because the real issue we are talking about, it is the land issue.